Hi, this is Val Campbell, and I'm an author, and I write novels about a mercenary team of assassins that deal with bad guys permanently. And I published 9 novels, and I write and create these scenes, these missions that this team goes on, and I do that with a lot of detail. I spend a lot of time researching and figuring out how these things would work and what the shot angles and the ballistics and the logistics and all of this stuff, right? And I don't know who killed Charlie Kirk, because when I started looking at this, none of it makes sense. Now, I'm not the world's greatest expert on all of these individual pieces, but the people that are can't seem to come to any kind of conclusion. They don't agree. Now, how is that? How is it you could take a half a dozen, really, really experts, and they all come up with pretty much dramatically different opinions on what actually happened here, because the evidence is so bizarre. So, why am I making this video? First off, as Gary Melton, who you'll see a link to before, as he said, we're tired of all of the misdirection and the BS and the lack of information and the covering our eyes so we can't really see the truth. We need numbers. We need to stand up, demand, and put pressure. Secondly, I believe that there are people out here that are my friends that don't have time to spend the many hours that I did reviewing all of this stuff, and they may not have the background to analyze the shot perspectives and geometry and the logistics and the ballistics and the anatomy and all of that stuff. And it's important that I believe, that we all have some level of understanding of what the issues are in this case. Why? Because they keep putting these narratives forward. Because Charlie Kirk was an important person. He was a very, very important person. And somebody killed him. Now, was it this 22-year-old Twinkie who managed to clamber up on a rooftop and get off a miracle shot and somehow with a 30-06 did what a 30-06 can't do? This is weird. So what happened was I was working on a video project about how we as humans aren't protecting ourselves from predators. And my buddy calls me and says, "Hey, did you hear on the news just now, Charlie Kirk was assassinated?" And it was just like somebody let the air out of me. It's like, no, because Charlie Kirk was a good guy. And he was really smart. And he was really fair. I don't care who you are, what you think or don't think. This is a guy who went into the public forum and debated. He put it out there. He was honest with his beliefs. He put them out there, and he attracted millions of followers. This was an important person in our nation. And somebody killed him. And we need to speak up. Something's going on here. I don't know what, but something. So let's talk about some of the bullet points. Sorry, I shouldn't have used that term. I didn't mean to, really. Let's talk about some of the individual points of this case and what just seemed off to me. First, my buddy calls and he says, "Man, I just saw videos out and there was blood all over the place, and it looked like maybe a bullet came and glanced up off of his body armor." And my first thought was, huh? That sounds weird. The next thing was you couldn't really avoid the images coming out. I saw something come across my social media feeds with this scene. And I thought, who put this guy in a fishbowl? Obviously, he'd had threats. We all knew that. and he's in an amphitheater down low with building all around him, and nobody secured these roofs. This crowd was just chaos. This was his style. But where's his security team? These people are either stupid or complicit. Stupid or guilty. You make your pick. And no, I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy. I'm saying something doesn't match here. This doesn't make any sense. You supposedly hire a security team and they don't secure? Again? After what we've experienced for the last 6 or 8, 9 months? Again? Rooftops open, no security, no drones? The next thing that seemed bizarre to me was the shot scene, the actual situation. There's no exit wound. There's no evidence of impact. I'm sorry, this little thing on the neck, that's not an entrance wound. It looks more like an exit wound, although it's not a big enough exit wound to make any kind of sense at all. I don't get it. I haven't heard a plausible explanation for this yet, with all respect to Gary Melton, who I loved his work, the analysis he did on this, but I'm going to explain to you what my contradiction is with this. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm saying I don't understand, so somebody please answer my questions. So you see these videos of what happens to him when he gets shot, and his body movement, and I'm going to explain the problem I have with this. A 30-06 is probably 150 to 175 grain bullet, traveling 2,500 feet per second, delivering 2,300 foot-pounds of force. Okay? Now, 1 foot-pound of force is the amount of effort it takes to lift 1 pound 1 foot in the air against gravity. So this bullet is being delivered with 2,300 pounds of force. Now, normally you see in a movie, the guy gets shot and he flies off of his horse. That doesn't happen because it's traveling 2,300 feet per second and it just passes right through the body. But on the way through, it's creating this enormous shock wave. It's a temporary wound cavity. And coming in the space of a neck, when it comes out the backside, and it would come out the backside. I don't want to hear that his bones were steel and it was a miracle. That's just crazy talk. Within that distance of his neck, it would make a hole out the backside, probably about the size of a softball, or I'm sorry, a tennis ball. Now, there's a big white banner behind him and there's no mark on it. There's no splatter. And if you look at Gary's videos, you will see them shooting a pork butt roast. And you look at the amount of splatter that comes out of the backside of that. It's enormous. So we're told there's no exit wound. How? Well, that one of the suppositions then is, well, he was wearing some kind of body armor. Okay. Do you know what happens to somebody that's wearing a body armor that has to absorb the force of 2,300 pounds of pressure? He would get blown back off that chair. But that doesn't happen. And my question about this body armor thing is, I've seen videos after video, I've studied them frame by frame by frame. There is no evidence of impact. If you get hit and that body armor is absorbing the force, you would see some effect of that. There would be a big hole in his shirt. You'd see the trauma of that right there. So then they say, well, you know, it hit up here somewhere and it glanced up, and that was what this little thing was. Well, we're told that his vertebra was penetrated from C2, way up at the top, all the way down through, I think it was at C7 or something like that, right down to the base of his upper back. And the bullet was lodged there. And there was fragments. What kind of 30-06 does that? So the discussion is, well, gee, maybe it hit the body armor right here and it glanced upwards. So I did some research. That's why I'm a research geek. I saw a couple of videos of some guys that were trying to replicate this. And they took a mannequin, they put some body armor on him, and they made a shot so it would hit up high right up here on the body armor. Not blunt force right in the middle, but up high so it would glance. It eviscerated the neck and head of that mannequin. I mean, it exploded like you've seen probably some of these pictures of watermelons getting hit by bullets. The skull and everything on this mannequin just went everywhere. And yet we see no evidence of that in this video ensemble of what happened to Charlie Kirk. None of this makes any sense. I don't have an answer. I've just got a lot of questions. So the ballistics didn't make sense to me. The next piece is, within about, minutes, the security team, presumably, are leaping and jumping over the tables, gathering the cameras and the SIM cards. They're removing evidence from the crime scene. How weird is that? Why would they do that? Now, somebody said, well, we were trying to make sure it stayed safe. Well, good. Then, bonehead, why don't you stick around there and make sure that nobody tampers with it instead of you tampering with it? I'm not buying it. That's BS. So the next thing that bugs me is, remember, it's like a week is going by and I'm not making this video yet because, I've got some expertise, but mostly it's secondhand and I write books. I don't have that kind of credibility. I wasn't a Marine Scout sniper and I wasn't a ballistics expert. But I take all of that information from those guys and I create these scenarios. And I would never write a scenario like this. It just doesn't make any sense. So the next thing that really bugs me, and I'm probably a horrible person. You're going to agree with me. I am. But within a week, everybody's moving on. We've caught our guy, 33 hours, he surrenders. This is our guy. We've analyzed all of the different information, and this is him. And everybody's moving on. We're holding a big media event. We name a day after Charlie. We name a street after him. We put up a statue. Life goes on. We've got to continue the business of Charlie, and let's he would want that. Let's get on with it. I'm not buying this. I don't want to point any fingers at any individual people, but this just seems weird to me. Again, weird. Candace Owens has used that word many times, and I got to tell you, I really have an appreciation for the stance she's making. And it feels to me like she's trying to be realistic and she's trying to be fair, but she uses this question a lot. She said, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but this is definitely weird. But somebody come out and answer the questions. You telling me that you're the police and you don't have this information and yet you're filing charges against this kid? If you've got the information, bring it out. Well, we're in an active investigation and we've got a trial and we can't talk about these things. BS. This is going to be a public trial. You have to release all of the evidence you've got to the defense. So none of this is going to be secret. So you might as well bring it out and show us what you've got, what's going on. They don't want to prejudice a jury? Well, I guarantee you already prejudiced the jury by pointing to this guy and producing all this fake, dumb video stuff. Look to me. So that moving on thing kind of bugs me. The next thing that really tweaked me is that we see this video, supposedly, of Tyler Robinson 15 seconds after the shot, walking across the roof with something in his arms. It looks like something in a towel. It does not look like a rifle to me. It's not big enough to be a rifle. It's not stiff enough to be a rifle. He gets down on his knees and clambers over the side of this roof and drops 12 feet approximately down to the grass. And he's got this rifle with him. Now, that rifle that's being described weighs 9 pounds. It is not easy to just jump off the roof, fall 12 feet, and keep your hands on this thing, if that's what it is. There wasn't enough time to disassemble it. I saw another video of an expert on a bench with all his tools right there. It took him 43 seconds to disassemble that rifle. And in doing so, he had to take the bolt out, which means that the casing, the spent round, was gone. Well, they find the rifle later, and it's neatly wrapped in a towel or something in some wooded area, and it's all together, and the round is chambered, and there's 3 other bullets there with weird slogans on it, Antifa slogans and things. How convenient is this? So we see this video. Greg talks about this brilliantly, by the way. Greg, I'm sorry, I apologize. Gary Melton talks about this brilliantly. The guy's walking across the roof. He gets down, he drops down, he stumbles off across the grassy area and out across the street. All the time, this video is zooming in and out, and it's panning with him as he leaves. How does that work? Who's manning the camera? This is supposedly some kind of a security camera that's on a lamppost or something across the street. But you telling me that it's just automatically following this guy? Keeps him in the center of the frame as it goes out a block away? This is weird, folks. This is just weird. So the final thing that really bugged me about this, about a week or so after this event, they come in and destroy the entire crime scene. They tear all the grass up and put down pavers. Now, how is it that they're allowed to do that? They think they've got all the evidence? I suppose. It just seems too convenient to me. That thing's been sitting there like that for a long time. Now, all of a sudden, they got to put down pavers, and we don't have answers. But we sure got questions, and I'm hoping that, if anything, this small effort that I'm putting out here helps to keep the pressure on and to keep the questions moving. And I want to thank Gary Melton. I keep saying Greg, but Gary Melton. I want to thank Chris Martinson for the work that he did. A couple of other guys. I'm going to put their links down here. There's some great work going on here. I'm just hoping that we get some answers, that somehow this makes sense. Because that assassination was an assault on all of us. It degrades our society. It removes a brilliant hero, a leader, and someone who's willing to speak up for righteousness. And they killed him. Somebody killed him. I'm Val Campbell. I'll see you on the next video.